Gas price situation is pretty easy to understand. We've got a situation here in the United States where we have too much supply and demand is down due to lack of weather showing up. And I think what's really amazing for people to think about when you think about international gas prices have come down significantly in response to a major crisis. It just shows you the energy security that natural gas can bring to the world. So listen, the low prices we're dealing with right now, you will see activity levels come down in the United States. That will bring down supply, and that will bring storage into balance. And you see this recovery in gas prices in the strip. Calendar 24 average price in the United States is about $2.25, $2.30. But looking forward to Cal 25, gas prices are north of $3, which, for perspective, we believe the break-even price that producers need to justify activity levels for the marginal cost of supply in the United States is around $3.50. So even with prices in 2025 being where they're at, we still think you'll see tempered activity levels, and prices should ultimately get closer towards the cost of supply in the U.S.
Okay. Toby, the Biden administration has just recently announced a freeze on licenses for new LNG terminals. What's your take on this move, and how might this change the LNG supply outlook in the medium term?
Yeah, so this was really driven by a very loud minority environmental group putting pressure on the Biden administration to put a pause on LNG. And, while this will not have an impact on anything in the near term, it does send a signal, and it sends a signal to the world that political force can override market forces. Clearly, the world is saying that more American LNG is needed on the world stage. You can look at counterparties in Europe, and they've basically said the United States is the global guarantor of energy security. So we think it's a misguided decision. We think it actually sets us backwards from a climate perspective. But for anybody that is watched what EQT has championed for the last, call it 24 months, we have made unleashing U.S. LNG as a top priority and a really amazing opportunity to do two things: lower global emissions and provide energy security to the world. And if anybody has any questions about how effective our Unleash U.S. LNG campaign has been, just look at the fact that environmentalists have made blocking LNG one of their priorities. It's a sign that we've been making too much noise, and it's been making too much sense. And what we hope that we need to do work now is with these environmental groups is, instead of blocking LNG because of their concerns for the environment, they need to be supporting LNG because of their concerns for the environment. And so we're going to knock methane emissions out of the park, which is really at the root cause of their concerns. And we're really excited about showing them how we're addressing methane emissions so that we can focus on the emission reduction benefits when people use our product to decarbonize their industries.
There has been a lot of activity in M&A in the shale space in the past few months. What is driving this, and could it have any impact on shale gas production, or will it be limited to shale oil only?
The world is getting more connected. Natural gas has become a global commodity. In this world, scale matters. And so we think that the pursuit of scale is going to be a driving force that justifies and supports some of the consolidation. But when we think about consolidation, we're not just trying to achieve scale for scale's sake. We're trying to get better, not just bigger. So I think the consolidation will be an opportunity for companies to create more efficiencies. And in this world, it's not about growth. It's not about pure size. It's about the ability to generate free cash flow and have rock solid balance sheets. And so we think consolidation can play a role, but it's got to be the right consolidation.
Looking more long term, is gas a transitional fuel or a destination fuel in a net zero world in 2050, you think, Toby?
Yeah, this is the great debate that's taking place in this world right now. What should our energy ecosystem look like? What is the energy source of the future? Is natural gas a bridge fuel? Is a permanent destination? Just take a step backwards, and I think when you look at the situation, I think the world will realize that we are in violent agreement on a few things. Energy ecosystem that we create, we have got to transition to an energy ecosystem that is more affordable, more reliable, and cleaner. And I don't think anybody would disagree. I think everybody would want more affordable, more reliable, cleaner energy. And the way I look at our energy transition plans of the world, if you care about lowering global emissions, let's go after and replace the biggest source of emissions on this planet, which is foreign coal. Let's use a proven playbook to do that. Look at the United States. What did we do to become the world leader in lowering emissions? We did 60% of our emission reductions came from doing one simple thing: replacing coal with natural gas. It's that simple. And now, thanks to the shale revolution, we have discovered a tremendous resource here of discovered but not yet drilled natural gas projects. Paired with LNG, we can now take this natural gas and ship it around the world. And so our plan is really simple. Let's transition the world from coal to gas. And that is going to be incredibly decarbonizing. It's also going to be incredibly powerful from an energy security perspective. And then while we're doing that, let's think about how we can transition gas to a zero carbon energy solution. So we're really excited about that. And at EQT, I'd say, we're driven. Our higher purpose is to bring energy security to the world and lower global emissions. And every single day, our mission is to make the energy we produce cheaper, more reliable, and cleaner, so we can bring these amazing energy solutions to the world. Because clearly, the world needs a lot more energy, and we've got to provide the solutions that the world is looking for.
But Toby, let's discuss how you're going to make it cleaner. Methane remains a concern when it comes to the gas industry. The U.S. has just announced a new rule on methane back in December. Do you think the industry in general needs clearer and stronger government regulations on methane emissions spanning the whole value chain?
Well, we think that regulations will help give comfort to the public that we are producing and implementing best practices, and our environmental performance is in line. But regulations are not going to be the magic bullet that people think. I mean, this industry stepping up to address methane emissions is going to be what the world needs to see. And I'll tell you exactly what I told Secretary Granholm about 24 months ago. I looked her in the eyes and said, if you're concerned about methane emissions, that's great. Keep the bullseye on methane emissions, because we're going to knock methane emissions out of the park. And you look at some of the things that we're doing at EQT to actually do that. I mean, for us, methane emissions for natural gas producers, the biggest source of emissions comes from one piece of equipment called a pneumatic device. We're able to replace that with alternative equipment that eliminates the methane emissions. And doing this one thing at EQT has been replacing all of our pneumatic devices. We pulled out over 9,000 of these across our entire footprint. So think about this. The largest producer of natural gas in the United States pulled all of these equipments. It's the most impactful thing we could have done. That one thing lowered our methane emissions by over 70%. And now our methane intensity is 10 times better than the EPA regulations. And we did it very quickly. We did this in less than 18 months. And equally as important, we did it cost effectively for a carbon CO2 equivalent abatement cost of less than $10 a ton. And the great news is this impactful, fast, cost-effective solution is not just available to EQT. This is an opportunity that all natural gas producers can do. And we are taking aggressive steps to eliminate these methane emissions. But, fixing the operations is one thing. We need to also bring transparency. And what you're seeing this industry do with the responsible certified gas is us bringing in environmental third-party auditors to verify the operations that we're saying are taking place are actually taking place. So we think gas certifications are going to be a really good piece of transparency. But also people are going to say, well, that's great if your operations are tight, but what about what's going on with your neighbors and the other parts of the basin? At EQT, we are addressing that question head on by going to the skies, and we are leading a coalition called the Appalachian Methane Initiative, and we are going to be doing aerial methane monitoring across the entire Appalachia Basin. That may not seem like a big deal to some because they don't really understand how big the Appalachia Basin is. Well, think about this. We are going to be monitoring emissions across an area the size of France. Like, we take this very seriously. And the last question that people will have is, well, Tobe, that's great that your operations are tight. It's great that you're looking at your entire basin, but this natural gas is going to leave your operations, leave your basin, and go to all parts of the country and go to all parts of the world now with LNG. What about the carbon emissions associated with the full cycle path? And this is where we are partnering with a company called Context Labs to bring blockchain technology that is going to give us a full cycle carbon intensity score from the time the gas comes out of the well through the pipelines and ultimately to the downstream consumer or across the world. We think that these type of steps are going to bring massive transparency and give people comfort that methane emissions will be addressed, so we can start focusing on the emissions reduction benefits of people using natural gas. And that's where the big opportunity is.
Talking about low carbon gas, is hydrogen the most scalable form of decarbonized gas? How important is this as a low carbon solution for the future, and how compatible is it with current gas infrastructure?
So in that second phase of transition gas to a zero carbon energy solution, we actually have a few different pathways. The two pathways that most people talk about is decarbonizing natural gas before we consume it by transforming it into zero carbon hydrogen. That is a path that's gotten a lot of excitement. Our view on this, it's really challenged from being a cost-effective solution today. We think that, to build a hydrogen system, you're going to be requiring about $20 per million BTU to use that hydrogen. 2/3 of that cost comes from the infrastructure needed to build to move that pure hydrogen around. The big cost isn't making the hydrogen; it's actually the infrastructure needed to support it. And so the question is, why would a customer pay $20 for a product when they can buy natural gas in the United States for $4? But it's promising, and the infrastructure that we build today to support more natural gas development can be used to be hydrogen ready. And so when you think about our LNG export plan, if we can unleash U.S. LNG in the United States, it would require an incremental 50%, 50 BCF a day of natural gas pipelines. That infrastructure, when we build that, can be built hydrogen ready to lower the infrastructure costs. But the pathway that we're most excited about, that we think is actionable today, is going to be decarbonizing natural gas through carbon capture. And there's been a couple catalysts that have happened recently that have been game changers for the sustainability, meaning the profitability of zero carbon power generation paired with carbon capture. The biggest one is IRA. Getting an incentive for carbon capture has moved to $65 for EOR and $85 if it's permanent. In permanent disposal of CO2. But the missing piece of the puzzle in this whole thing has always been ironically, it's been getting a pure stream of CO2. So we have the incentives. Now there's technology that's coming to hit the market that is oxy-combustion power generation technology that is going to take natural gas as an inlet and produce a pure stream of CO2 out the tailpipe. If you give this industry a pure stream of CO2, we are going to stick it underground and find a way to do that. And people are asking questions like, well, where would you stick this stuff? Certainly we have, amazing geologists here in the United States. I mean, think about what we've discovered here. We have really good understanding of the subsurface, and we will find the deeper permanent zones. But think about this. Every day in the United States, we're producing, call it 20 million barrels of oil with another 30 million barrels of water that gets produced alongside that. Every day we are producing We are creating 50 million barrels of space for something else, and that other thing, that something else could be CO2.
Yeah.
So when you step back, and I'll wrap up here, you step back and realize the last 100 years of oil and gas production in this country has set the table and created room for the next 100 years of zero carbon energy consumption. We've got the incentives, we've got the technology. Now we just need to connect the dots and show the world that we can make natural gas a zero carbon electricity solution that they've been looking for.